Hey, shalom, brothers and sisters. Welcome back. I thank you again for joining me today. Well, today I want to talk about an important archaeological discovery that's not brand new, but I just think it's worth mentioning. And before I continue, I just want to thank you guys again for watching, and I hope you get something from my videos, especially this one. So I'm going to go ahead and read this little article here. Uh, okay, it says in 1953, an extensive cemetery containing more than 500 burial places were discovered at a Franciscan sanctuary of the Dominus Flevet, which is located halfway down the slope of Mount of Olives, and it was well within the camp in Yeshua's time. Well, within the camp means sort of this designated city limits area. Uh, what is interesting is the fact that the coins found in these tombs are all dated before 15 or 16 Common Era. Finnegan, the archaeology of the New Testament, page 243. This suggests that no more burials were allowed in this area after the year 16 or somewhere soon after that date. This gives us good information that the ban against burying people within the 2,000 cubits radius surrounding the central temple at Jerusalem only started about 20 CE and lasted until the destruction of the temple in 70. Uh, because the rule was legislated somewhere near the time of Yeshua's that Yeshua began his ministry, that no more tombs could be built so close to Jerusalem, and that even the existing ones that were above ground had to have the bodily remains of the dead removed to places outside of the camp. In Jerusalem, it was not permitted to leave tombs within Jerusalem, with the exception of those of the house of David and that of the prophetess Huldah. And that's you can find that in Talmud Tosifta Baba Bathra, chapter 1, verse 2. By tombs, the rule meant that the bones in the tombs had to be transported to other non-sacred areas, not that the physical tombs themselves were removed, many of which were carved in solid rock. The Jewish authorities at Jerusalem simply enacted a law which made it illegal for Jews to leave tombs within the city limits of the holy city. It became custom to place the bones of those buried within the city limits in specially designed chests of wood or stone called ossuaries. Uh, these were then transported out of the sacred regions of Jerusalem and outside the camp into newly built tomb areas on the outskirts of Jerusalem. These ossuaries were small chests of wood or stone about 20 to 32 inches in length, 11 to 20 inches in width, and 10 to 16 inches in depth. Ossuaries were used as secondary burials. Many of them have been, of course, been found, and I've talked about them in past videos. One is most interesting because it illustrates the custom near the time of Yeshua of not leaving tombs or the bodily remains in a tomb within the city limits of Jerusalem. Inscribed on one of these ossuaries are the following: Hither were brought the bones of Uzziah, king of Judah. Do not open. And that's from Thompson's Archaeology and the New Testament, page 336. This reference is very important to our present discussion because the early king Uzziah became a leper and was buried in the first place outside Jerusalem. His original tomb was located in the field and not among the royal tombs in the city of David. And that's 2 Chronicles chapter 26, verse 23. But near the time of Yeshua, having a tomb in the field, though outside the walls of Jerusalem, was then being reckoned as still within the camp. This is why it was thought necessary to transfer these bones outside the camp of the larger Jerusalem that existed in Yeshua's time. The bones of King Uzziah were placed in a newly made tomb area beyond the sacred limits of Jerusalem. There must have been several of these outer tomb areas that were designed not only for the burials of important people living in the first century, but also to house the bones of the early prophets and righteous people who had been buried within the camp of Israel inside and surrounding the city of Jerusalem. The building of these new tomb areas is mentioned by Yeshua as occurring at the very time he was preaching the gospel in Jerusalem. And here, notice what he says right here. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, because you are building, which means present time, the graves of the prophets, and you are decorating, which decorating is present sense, the tombs of the righteous. And that's in Matthew chapter 23, verse 29. Since the prophets had died centuries before, it is ridiculous to think that Jewish authorities were building their new tombs, their tombs for the first time. When Yeshua was referring, what Yeshua was referring to was making a new tomb for them. The tombs of all the prophets and righteous people within the camp of Israel that surrounded Jerusalem were in Yeshua's time being transferred to other areas outside the city limits. Until bones and other remains of those dead were removed, it was customary to whitewash their tombs within the sacred area of Jerusalem in order that people would be able to distinguish them so that they would not become ritualistically unclean by touching them. You can check that out in Matthew 23, verse 27. But the Jewish authorities were at the very time of Yeshua in the process of building, and that's in the present tense, the tombs of the early prophets. And it's also mentioned in Luke chapter 11, verses 47 and 48, as well as Matthew chapter 23, verse 29. Check them out. The transferal of bones of the righteous dead, including the early prophets, outside the camp of Jerusalem was going on right at the time of Yeshua's preaching in early 30 CE. It appears that there were two principal regions which archaeologists are able to locate that represent these areas for the reburial of the early prophets and righteous. One of the main sites has become known as the Sanhedria tombs, located a little over a mile northwest of the Temple Mount and well outside the limits of the camp. The contents found in these tombs were dated from the beginning of Herod's reign, which is 36 BCE, to the fall of Jerusalem in 70 CE. And since Yeshua said that the authorities were decorating the memorial tombs of the righteous, it is interesting that the Sanhedria tombs have at their entrance various carvings of leaves, pomegranates, and citrons. These may have been the very decorations to which Yeshua had reference. But besides that, most of the ossuaries in which the bones of the prophets and righteous were deposited were also decorated. And this is precisely what Yeshua said they were doing in his time. But the area of the Sanhedria tombs was not the only region of reburial. There was another to which the remains of the early Jewish dead were transferred. This was a rock-hewn chamber located out on the Mount of Offense on the southeast of Jerusalem. And that's, you can look that up, Finnegan Archaeology of the New Testament, pages 238 to 240. It must be reckoned that the time for depositing the remains of the dead in this location was associated with that of the Sanhedria tombs. So they had to transfer bones. Nobody was allowed to be buried within the precinct or within the camp close to the temple in Jerusalem. And the ones that were, like even the righteous prophets or former whoever, they had to be transferred outside in a new location, and they were building new tombs for these esteemed people. And That's what Yeshua was referring to when he mentioned a few times what he mentioned a few times in the Gospels. But yeah, that's just an interesting fact. And archaeologists, they come up and find this stuff, and sometimes it's kind of like they find it, and with all the with also with the historical records to help guide. That's another important factor. But archaeologists are finding these coins and these ossuaries and things like that. It's pretty fascinating. But I just wanted to share this with you. I thought it'd be a nice lesson. And anyways, let me know what you think about this. It's fascinating. And also, please give me a thumbs up and hit that notification bell and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And I really do. I really do thank you guys for watching my videos. And until we meet again, brothers and sisters, peace out and shalom.